Ahoy, what's happening? I'm Eddie, the Skinhead Gourmet. Today we're making Rosemary Chambord duck with crispy leeks and some baby California gold potatoes. Oi. One of the downsides to doing duck breast is that it does have a little bit of a preparation time ahead of it. So about an hour before you plan on starting to cook it, you're going to want to take your duck breasts, clean it a little bit. I've taken some of the blood that came off. I'm going to reserve this for the sauce we finish it with later. But we're going to want to score the skin, and here I've actually got a nice bed of salt. And what we're going to want to do is just open up the skin and open a passageway down to the fat, because when we do cook this, we're going to let it render down, and we're actually going to be able to collect some duck fat that we can use for other dishes at a later time. But by doing this, we're going to open a passageway so that the meat will get a little bit cooked, but also so all that delicious fat comes out. There's actually a specialized tool called a jacquard tool. That's basically a small bed of little blades on a little spring-loaded handle you put on, and it just punctures rows of little holes along the breast, which is one of the best ways you can go about opening it. If you don't have that, it's a very specialized tool for just one purpose. You can use a sharp knife, you can use a toothpick and just toothpick, rows of holes throughout it. But after you do that, you want to get a nice solid salt crust on that skin, because we're going to actually let this sit nice and salt coated for at least an hour or so. We're going to want that skin to just absorb up that salt. We're going to let it dry out all the fat that's in there, and that's just going to help wonderfully in the rendering process. It's also going to add a little bit of flavor to our duck for when it goes into the pan. We've also got a little bit of black pepper in there just to add more depth to the flavor. You've got a nice salt crust on your skin. There's a little bit of pepper. You can rub it in a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to let this sit for about an hour like this. I'm actually going to put it in the fridge because we're going to want to chill the duck breast. This is going to help make the rendering process come a lot more successfully. So we went and we salted our duck breast and we chilled it. And around that time you're going to want to get your oven going at about 350. Or if you're using a regular sized potato, we've got some of these tiny little baby golds that'll cook fast, so we're doing this when we're starting the process. But if you're doing something a little bit larger or more common, you definitely want to get them in at about 350. I've got these guys halved, tossed in a little bit of olive oil. And we're just going to salt and pepper them. And we're going to toss them in a little bit of our Fiends Herbs mix that we're going to be using throughout the dish. And it's mostly the usual suspects: some parsley, some sage, some thyme, some dill. And we've got some rosemary over here on the side because we're going to be using that with the duck and the sauce. But we just kind of give these guys a quick toss. And we can just lay them out on a baking sheet and give them a little bit of space. And we're going to want to get these guys in as quickly as possible. What we're going to want to start with is our duck from the fridge, still chilled, cold, in a cold pan. We're going to go skin side down. And we're going to have all that salt and pepper that we let it soak with and that scored skin. And into a cold pan, we're going to put it in, and after it's in the pan, we're going to turn it to about a medium and medium-low heat. What we're going to do is we're going to let this go for about 20 to 25 minutes. This is going to slowly render out the fat. We're actually going to pour it off as it goes because we're going to get a lot more fat than we'll need just to do these two breasts. I'm doing duck, and if you've been watching the show for any period of time or have ever talked to me, you've probably learned that duck breast and duck fat are some of my favorite things in the world to work with. And one of the great things about this recipe is you're going to get more fat than you're going to really need to cook just these breasts. You can pour this off and save it, and it's a wonderful fat to work with. It's actually more similar to, say, an olive oil than it would be to butter or bacon fat or other animal fats. Goose is the same way, and they're both full of it's a monosaturated fat. You know, at room temperature, it's actually somewhat liquid. It's got the same omega-3 and omega-6 oils that are supposed to make salmon so very good for you. It's a wonderful fat, and the flavor is absolutely second to none. It's one of the richest, most indulgent flavors you can get. And if you buy ducks or geese, or if you hunt even more, it's taking the fat, rendering it, and saving it is a wonderful way to add a ton of flavor to any dish that you're cooking with. You can use it in place of olive oil, butter, for sure use it in place of something like a margarine. And it's something that brings a lot, like a deep savory flavor to anything you cook. We've got the duck slowly cooking, we've got the potatoes in the oven, so while we're waiting we're going to get our leeks ready to make some crispy leeks. We're going to cut them very thin, because we're going to roll these guys in a mix of flour. It's a mix of 2 parts flour, 1 part cornstarch, and I'm actually using a Ras El Hanout seasoning mix, which is a traditional Moroccan spice. It's very aromatic and fragrant with a little bit of spice to it, but you could use a blackening seasoning mix, Old Bay or something of the sort, a Creole mix, something that we're just going to get a little bit of extra something to the leeks. And which we've taken them, we've cut them in half, we've cleaned them, which is important anytime you do anything with them. In between these layers, when you first open it, you can find dirt and everything just from when the leek grows up through the soil. It gets caught, so you've got to wash these guys out good. And if you're not comfortable with your knife, or you're not sure it's not coming out as thin as you like, you can take them a single sheet at a time and just slowly. You don't so much want to push as you want to push forward and slide your knife across it. And even if you don't make a complete cut, they'll pull apart easily. But you want to have these nice thin little strands that after we toss them in some breading, we're going to fry in some duck fat. And they're going to be absolutely delicious, and they're going to bring a very modern look to the dish as a whole. Now that we've got our leeks cut up, we've got our duck slowly rendering, we've got our potatoes cooking, I've got some carrots and a little bit of parsnip. It's actually 1 large parsnip that I peeled and sliced down. We're going to take these and put them into some simmering water. We're actually going to blanch them off. We're going to partially cook them, remove them, and set them aside so we can later saute them. We're just going to get them about halfway cooked so that they're nice and soft and ready to go when the time comes to finish them off. Now, underneath the duck's skin, between that and the meat, there's a ton of subcutaneous fat that's just slowly coming out. And we're going to, throughout this slow cooking process here, we're going to pour that off. Now, for our leeks, we've got them nice and thinly sliced. I've got my flour and cornstarch mix. I'm going to take my leeks, I'm going to put the whole bunch of them in there and just slowly kind of roll them through. It's okay if 1 or 2 of them come out not covered completely in flour. I mean, they're still going to get crispy. They're still going to have a nice shape about them. And a little variety in texture and color isn't necessarily a bad thing. When you're first cooking duck breast, when it's still skin side down and you're getting the fat out, it's the one meat that breaks the rules. Instead of like burgers and steaks, any kind of beef or chicken where you're not supposed to push down on it, you want to let the juices stay in it. This one, while you're trying to get that fat out, it's actually a good idea to give it a little bit of a push. You're going to help it out a little bit, help it expel the fat, which will leave you with a nice crispy crackling skin and a nice little bit of fat to keep for cooking other stuff. One thing we're going to do is take some of this fat, We let our veggies cook for about 2.5, 3 minutes, so they're only partially cooked, and we took them off of the heat and out of the water and put them into a bowl. I'm going to add a little bit of this to them so that while they cook, they'll have a little bit of that rich duck fat flavor, which will help tie the whole dish together, just make them taste all around fantastic. Just like our vegetables, we're going to take our potatoes that are in the oven, we're going to take them out for a sec. We're going to drizzle little bits of this duck fat right onto the potatoes while they're cooking. That little bit extra heat will help them out, so keep them from getting dried out. It's also going to make them taste really fucking good. There may come a time during your cooking process where it seems the wellspring of fat from the duck will start to run dry. That time comes at about between 15 and 20 minutes in if you're at a nice medium heat. At this point, you're actually going to want to pour a little bit of your fat back in, not too much. You're going to want to save at least a little bit for later. You're going to get this down, and now you can add a little bit of our Fiend's Herb mix. We're going to put that onto the back, or the meat part of the duck. We're also going to take some of our rosemary. We're going to sprinkle the duck with that a little bit. And I see the oil's pooling up on one side of the pan, so we're going to move the duck to the other side. We're going to fry off our crispy leeks in this. We're actually going to turn the heat up just a little bit more now that we're through the rendering process. These crispy leeks are a wonderful little addition to this dish. One, they make for a fun garnish and a vegetable. While you're cooking them, you create a small bit of a roux in the pan, and just anything with a little bit of crunch and snap to it. It always kind of adds a little bit of extra appeal to the dish as a difference in mouthfeel. And you can pile these on top of your duck, and it gives it that modern kind of chic look that you see in a lot of restaurants with their plating. And it's easy enough to do at home, and it's something a little bit out of the ordinary. After about 25 minutes at a medium heat, and then we turned it up to a medium-high heat within the last 5 minutes to do the leeks, and we're starting to see the pan dry out, and we're seeing that the duck is starting to get color up around the sides. If you feel it, it should almost feel like about a medium steak. Now, we are going to be cooking our ducks to about medium well, as Tracy has a tendency to like it a little bit more well done, and I don't like the duck too chewy. Plus, I like to render as much of the fat out as possible, and I love that crispy crackling skin to be, crispy, like you're eating a pork crackling almost, but richer. But we want to get these guys flipped over, move them into the fat a little bit, and we're just going to kind of move this back down to a medium heat. We're going to let these guys sit for about another 5 minutes or so. Our duck breast has been flipped over. If we still have our pan that we blanched off our veggies in, we can pour out the water, put it onto a medium-high heat, throw a little bit of butter in the bottom, and when we went and did our crispy leeks, I small diced a little bit. We're going to take just a pinch of that, put it in with the butter. We're going to sprinkle in some of our Fiend's Herbs mix. We're going to let that get going for a second. Well, after about 25 minutes, our California baby golden potatoes are done in the oven. They've been in there at what we believe to be is about 350 degrees. Our oven dial isn't marked, so we can't be 100% sure, but that is about where we think it is. But these guys are nice and soft and a little bit crispy. We're going to take these out and let them rest for a moment. So we've got our butter melted down, so we're going to take our carrots and our parsnips that have been tossed in a little bit of duck fat. We've got the seasoning down in there. We've got those leeks, all that butter. We're going to add in a little bit of salt and pepper. We're going to just toss them around a little bit. We're going to saute them to, sauterne. It means basically to make something jump around, which is what we're going to do for just a minute. And then we've got about a half a cup of white wine over here. We're going to pour that in. We're just going to let that cook down a little bit. The duck got turned over about 5 minutes ago, so we're going to take a little bit of our Chambord, We're going to drizzle just a tiny little bit on there. Like literally just a drop or two. Kind of move the chicken into the fat that's boiling over there and back out of it. Flip it over for just a quick sec. We're actually going to remove this from the pan and let it rest. But I've got a little bit of the white wine left over from my veggies. I'm actually going to pour that in. Let that kind of do the first wave of deglazing the pan. You can see what we've got in here is a nice thick layer of delicious. We're going to turn our heat down to a low medium. We're going to take the rest of our Chambord here and we're going to pour that in. That's going to deglaze the pan yet again. And even taking the heat lower, it's still going to be hot enough that it's going to get this reducing output. Just a little extra rosemary to this. And a little Fiend's Herbs mix. Make sure it's nicely mixed around. It's been about 5 minutes. Our duck's been resting for 5 minutes. You can see our Chambord in the pan is reduced down somewhat. We're actually going to take it off heat. And we're going to take some of this cubed butter over here and we're going to slowly whisk it in. Almost like we were making our beurre blanc. Duck breast is rested for 5 minutes, and I know there's some out there who are going to hate me for wanting to cook it this much. About the only reasons I can justify it is the crispy crackling skin and having it nice and crispy on the back, to me, is just such a wonderful flavor combination. But one nice thing about duck, unlike chicken, you can actually eat it as uncooked as, say, even a medium rare. A little pink in it isn't a bad thing. It's not the same health risk that chicken presents. Got duck breast, Rosemary Chambord duck breast over some baby California golden potatoes and a little bit of carrot and parsnip with some crispy leeks on top. Wonderful wintertime meal, surprisingly easier and cheaper to make than you would think. Well, enjoy and good eating. I'm Eddie the Skinhead Gourmet. Oi.